Hot Mic with Dom Izzo.
Really? Really, Dom?
No. I like what Dom's doing.
Okay.
Dom Izzo.
Jeez, come on, Dom. What do you think I am, a magician?
Yeah, I'm fired up, Dom. What else could I say?
Absolutely. It was great to get on the field, and then Dom came up to me, and I'm trying to walk away from me. I just wanted to enjoy myself out there.
Hot Mic.
Great job.
There's got to be some kind of intelligent question about something.
Hot Mic. Hot Mic. On the networks of WDAY.
You know, if it's not about sports, I find it very hard to concentrate.
Here's Dom Izzo. Dom Izzo.
Good Tuesday morning. Welcome to the, it's going to snow edition of Hot Mic on WDAY Extra at Inforum.com on this 21st day of March. You heard me right, 21st day of March, not 21st day of November or December or January or February. March! We're going to do this, I think, every day until we have a spring sports game outside. But our good friend, John Wheeler, who gets more hate mail, email, angry looks, angry phone calls than anybody else, said in an email late last night about what's to come, which is going to hit Fargo. If anybody wants to know, we also had delayed springs with consistent snow cover into April in 2019, 2018, 2013, and 2011. This is not out of the ordinary. I am sending that to the North Dakota High School Activities Association. They should know this. Because for anybody that plays a spring sport, it is a hose job. I'm not even talking 2020 because we didn't have any spring sports because of the pandemic. And the last 2 years that are not included on Wheel's email, we still had plenty of snow and it was cold that we still didn't play. So for the people that will retaliate and say, well, Dom, it's just, what happens when we have a good spring year? More often than not, we don't. Wheel's telling me this is not out of the ordinary. So then why in God's name are we playing baseball and softball on March 21st? It's not fair. I sense a commentary coming again on this. Maybe even as soon as tomorrow night. Because it's like we're bashing our heads against the wall hoping for a different result instead of getting a concussion. You know what I mean? It's like what else are we expecting? And for the athletes that want to play golf and tennis and soccer and track and softball and baseball, lacrosse, you are royally hosed with a capital H. Because what will end up happening, we're sitting here on March 21st. There's no way that anything's going to melt by March 31st that I'd say by May 1st, we're probably going to have our first game. So you're telling me we got a month of a season, less than that. And that's fair? Say, it was an outlier. It was a bad spring. That's not accurate. This is telling me the chief meteorologist, the guy who's been here 3+ decades, he knows more about weather than anybody else in this part of the world. He's telling us it's not out of the ordinary. Then that should be a red flag to those that run things for high school sports in the area. Minnesota, too. And I always say Minnesota gets a little bit unscathed with this because their seasons go 2 weeks longer than North Dakota's does. Minnesota goes to the middle part of June, and some say that is too long. I'd say it's perfect considering what we're dealing with here. I always had this running joke when I used to cover the State B that track coaches would come up and say, we got track practice beginning on Monday. What? What? Doesn't make any... we're going to have plenty of indoor track meets over the next few weeks. And that's about it on the spring sports side of things. So, I got that. I read that email last night before I went to bed. I'm like, yep, okay. There's enough ammunition now that the people that would reply or say, well, it's just an outlier, or what happens when we have a really good spring? Awesome. Maybe they can get outside and practice a bit earlier. But more often than not, this is the case. So there's our weather rant to start the day. And it has nothing to do with the weather. It has everything to do with scheduling. Like, it just doesn't make any sense of why we're doing this so early. And then forcing teams like baseball and softball, you got to play 4 games in a week or 5 games in a week. Or soccer that you got to play 3 times in a week. That's just, it's asinine to me, but no one asked me. Oh, we got a packed show coming up. I'm really excited about our lineup today. A lot of good stuff to get to. Boy, if you weren't into anything live sport-wise last night, you missed out. Whether it was the NCAA women's basketball tournament, whether it was the Timberwolves who had their backs up against the wall, or even the World Baseball Classic. You had your veritable choice of what you wanted to watch on a Monday night. I actually soaked that in last night because I don't know how many more Mondays we're going to have where we had this kind of options last night. Let's start with the Wolves. We buried them yesterday after we showed you the injury to Anthony Edwards. Had lost 3 in a row on the road at the Knicks, who had been playing some pretty good ball. The Knicks are in 5th, I believe, in the Eastern Conference. But last night, the Wolves got one of those offensive performances that when it happens, you better embrace it. And it's by that man, Taurean Prince, who was just phenomenal last night. He took 8 3-pointers. He made all of them. 8 for 8. Here's another one off a dish from Kyle Anderson. Put the Wolves up 12 early in the third quarter. Eventually, they built a 17-point lead in this game. That shot from Mike Conley goes. That's the kind of night it was for the Wolves. And this is despite the fact that Julius Randle for the Knicks had 57 last night. The 5th highest scoring performance in the history of Madison Square Garden. And yet the Wolves had the lead. Here late in the third, tied at 107. Nickeil Alexander-Walker drives and scores. I mean, this is not the Wolves we thought signing up when the season started in October. Prince with another deep 3. Wolves down 5 at this point. Now he goes to the basket and scores. I mean, he could not miss last night. 35 points. Here they're down 3. Kick out 3 in the corner. That's another one that ties it up at 129. Now the Wolves are up 1. Why not another one from Taurean Prince? That was the capper. The Wolves go into Madison Square Garden and beat the Knicks 140-134 in a game they absolutely had to have without Anthony Edwards, without Karl Anthony Towns, and win the game. It was some history last night for Prince as well. The first player in NBA history with 30-plus points and 8 3-pointers and shot 90% or better. He didn't miss a 3. His final stats from the field, 12 of 13 from the field, 8 of 8 from 3-point range, 3 for 4 at the foul line for 35. Mike Conley added 24. And the Knicks, who are a good defensive team, Tibbs is their coach, give up 140 to the Timberwolves, who get their 36th win of the season and snap their 3-game losing skid. And in the process, steady themselves, at least for the day, in the Western Conference standings, because now there is a 3-way tie for 8th. Look at our fancy graphics now. A fancy way for the Wolves to win, because you can see now they are tied with the Thunder and the Jazz. But the Wolves have the tiebreaker. So right now, Minnesota holds the 8th spot. They're a half game back of Dallas. And then you see the Thunder and the Jazz right behind them. And the race there for at least to try and get out of the play-in. They're not out of that. They're a game back of Golden State, as you can see, for the last playoff spot, as it were. 7 through 10, you remember, go into the play-in tournament. Wolves come back home. They play the Hawks coming up tomorrow night. Atlanta seems like it's given up on the season. It's certainly how they played when the Wolves played in Atlanta last week. It certainly seems like Atlanta is not necessarily inclined to win. And then it's 3 toughies after that. Golden State, Sacramento, Phoenix. Can we get Ant back sometime, or Cat, one or the other? Because the next three after that are going to be difficult for the Timberwolves, including back-to-back with Golden State and Sacramento next Sunday and Monday. So that was exhilarating what Torian Prince did. Now, I will freely admit, said it on the show, that the World Baseball Classic was not something I was going to be completely in tune with. It certainly turned opposite when Edwin Diaz got hurt last week for Puerto Rico in the win against the Dominican Republic. Watching Team USA and the American team had kind of scuffled out of the gates. They hit their stride at the end of group play, advanced, had a crazy game with Venezuela. We showed you that yesterday where Trey Turner hit the grand slam to win it. He had 2 home runs on Sunday. They beat Cuba, routed them. But the game last night in Miami between Mexico and Japan was just awesome. It was just a great, great baseball game. And I was flipping this on my phone just to keep track. I was interested to see how the game would play out. And it played out in a way that was just fantastic. It was everything that you could have wanted and then some. Our guy, Randy Arozarena, who rose to stardom a few years ago in the World Series with the Rays in 2020. Here he can't touch a 102-mile-per-hour fastball from Sasaki, who had all the scouts watching him. It's a scoreless game until this blast from Luis Arias, a 3-run shot that gives Mexico a 3-zip lead. And again, the intensity in this is what baseball doesn't have. It's 3-zip. Arozarena makes this play where just nonchalant goes up and robs it at the wall, and then the stance at the end. Again, hardcore baseball fans may kind of frown at this, at the showmanship. I loved it. And then he was signing baseballs during a pitching change. Our guy Ohtani, who never shows any emotion, did in the game last night. Draws a walk here. And then Yoshida, who plays for the Red Sox. You're going to see this guy hit bombs at Fenway Park like this. A 3-run home run, and just like that, Japan has tied it up at 3 in the bottom of the 7th inning. Mexico would come back in front, though. Alex Verdugo, you know him. Hits this one into the gap. Arozarena would come around and score. Mexico would add another run. They go up 5-3 in the top of the 8th. Again, just the momentum swings in this were just fantastic. Japan would get a run back. It's 5-4. They had the tying run on, but couldn't get out anybody home. Left a runner on to send this game to the 9th inning. Ohtani leads off in the bottom of the 9th and blasts this one into the gap. This is such an unusual display of emotion for Ohtani. He is such a straight-laced guy. You can see he was pumped up. And if he's going, you have to know the rest of the Japanese team was going to be riled up. And they certainly were after he delivered there. They get another runner on. And then Murakami comes up with 2 on and a 1-1 pitch. Blast this to the gap in left center. And that would be your ball game, as Ohtani would come around and the winning run would score, and Japan comes back and beats Mexico 6-5 in a game that was just, it had everything you want. It had great pitching. It had some tremendous defense. It had clutch hitting. It had fantastic emotion. I mean, literally, this is what the All-Star game should be. I know the hardcores will be like, well, it's not the American League or the National League anymore. Well, yeah, we've done that. Maybe it doesn't work. This works. Watching it last night, and I think there were people that were not necessarily into this that were watching saying, boy, the World Baseball Classic, they found something here. That this is, you've got some attention on the sport. You've got the highest profile players playing in the sport. And you're producing some great games. I mean, you get all 3 of those, you've got something there that's working. And now it'll be Japan against the United States for the championship tonight Ohtani said after the game, Ken Rosenthal from Fox interviewed him and asked, "Hey, are you available to pitch?" And immediately he's shaking his head like this, even before the interpreter could finish interpreting the question, that he knew it was coming. So, I mean, you could have Ohtani against Mike Trout tonight, teammates facing one another. How about that? If that comes to fruition tonight, if Ohtani's on the mound and Trout is in the batter's box, sign me up for that. I'm okay with that. And I think, again, as disappointed as I am, and many Mets fans are, that Edwin Diaz won't pitch this season and got hurt in this tournament. You know, it's one thing if Diaz were to blow his knee out in the 5th game of the regular season for the Mets. I think that still it's more palatable than this. And you still really can't deny the excitement of that game last night. That was a lot of fun. Arozarena's a star. He plays in Tampa, but he's a star. You're going to find out all about Yoshida here pretty soon. He's going to be a star. Ohtani, I guarantee if I were to go down University here or even downtown and show a picture of Shohei Ohtani to 10 people, how many know who he is? 2? Maybe? That's a whole other problem to get into. But again, he's a star. Without the uniform on, I'm saying. Even maybe with the uniform on. If he had the Angels uniform on, I still don't know how many people would know who he is. Fun game last night. Excited to see the championship coming up tonight. Excited for our show lineup here. We got our usual Tuesday lineup of guests coming up at 9:35. Mike McFeely will join us. We will chat with Michael. This portal season officially underway. It opened last week, but some rather large names have gone in, which we'll discuss here in a few minutes. And also onto the Gophers hiring of Dawn Plitzowite. We'll visit with Mike about that coming up at 9:35. At 10 o'clock, Kyle Emanuel will be here as we are a couple days away from the start of Bison's spring ball. We'll tap into Kyle's mind there about some players that I'm interested in. I'm sure he's got some other guys as well that we'll keep an eye on this spring as the Bison get set to start 15 practices on Thursday. And at 10:35, the newest All-American wrestler at North Dakota State, West Fargo's own Jared Franek, will join us after a remarkable weekend in Tulsa that saw him place 4th at the NCAA championships at 157 pounds, including going through the blood round where he had been knocked off the previous 2 times. He won there on Friday to get to Saturday. We'll talk all about the pressures of that. And hopefully he's had a little bit of food to eat. Whatever indulgences he's had over the last 2 days. We got to ask him about that coming up at 10:35. That and a heck of a lot more here on our show this morning. We'll take a break. We come back. Another dynamite finish in the women's basketball tournament. We'll show you that as 2 top seeds are out on the women's side. Hot Mic is off and rolling. We're back after this on WDAY Extra and Inforum.com. All right, well, 2 things here to address. One, our guy Kyle Strecker was right. He told me, you're not going to watch the World Baseball Classic? Nah! He was right. I was wrong on that. Second, I decided to go back on the oranges. For those that listen to the program, I've been eating bananas for a while during our show breaks, but the Jackman is either soured on bananas or he's not into it right now. So I'm like, all right, well, I'm going back on oranges. And yesterday was perfect. Had a great today though, and I'm sorry for you podcast listeners, you can't. It's tremendous, but it's extra juice. I mean, if we had cameras on during the commercial break, this would have been an abomination. Because the hands are just now. I didn't have enough paper towels here, so it's just a mess. So at least it doesn't smell bad in here, but it just, we don't have enough time. I ate half of it. Now I got to wait till our next break to finish it. It's just a problem here. What are you going to do? Got to get your fructose. You got to get your vitamin C. And I'm not apologizing on this. Just not enough time. Need more sponsors. Then we can get longer commercial breaks. Anyway, Mike McFeely coming up here in just a few minutes. Hey, tomorrow on the show, excited about this. Dick Bramer will make his season debut from Florida, voice of the Minnesota Twins on Bally Sports North. He'll join us each and every Wednesday throughout the Twins baseball season. Tomorrow, 10 o'clock, each and every Wednesday. Also, as we mentioned, with Bison spring ball set to start, head football coach Matt Entz will join us tomorrow at 10:35. So we got a packed lineup coming up on our show tomorrow. Excited about that. We didn't have time for this in our opening segment, so let's get to it now. One last game to show you, and that was from the women's basketball tournament last night. Miami and Indiana. Indiana, we've showed you before, ran a great season. They earned the top seed in their region, and they slugged it out with Miami last night. The Hurricanes would not go away in this game. We have a highlight issue with our tape here, so I'll have to tell you exactly how the game ended with a tremendous finish that came down. Destiny Harden hit the game-winning shot late to win this game for Miami. Said during the post-game press conference, the assistant coach told her to go and win the effing game. Live on TV, by the way. That's 2 days in a row that we've had live swearing at the end of the game. And the Cavender twins were huge in this. And for those that follow basketball, you know the name. The Cavenders were the first to really embrace name, image, likeness, that they had a huge deal before they even played a minute of college basketball. They play at Miami. They were big in the game last night, and they ended up beating Indiana on their floor. And again, I'll reemphasize this when we showed you the Ole Miss game yesterday, that's why those are so impressive to me, because those are road wins. Those are literally going to the opponent's gym and winning. It's not like the men's tournament. And I'm not going to get into what's better, because I know we stoked the firestorm on that last year. But I'll just tell you, it takes a heck of a lot more to win on the road in these tournaments than it does on the men's side. So Miami and Ole Miss, Colorado won at Duke last night. SDSU gave Vodtech a heck of a challenge, but they came up short. Vodtech won the game. They were better. Can't discount the fact of what the home court advantage did there too. But congratulations there to Miami, as the Sweet 16 is now set on the women's side. And as you see in our graphic now, with 2 number 1 seeds gone, with Indiana and Stanford, was anybody beating South Carolina anyway? I don't know. But now you set up the possibility of a South Carolina-Iowa potential semifinal in Dallas, that you could have Aaliyah Boston against Caitlin Clark. I know that's what ESPN's open for. I don't know if that's going to happen. On the other side, you've got a potential here of a Connecticut LSU national semifinal. How much could that potentially be fun? So we'll see what materializes here, but the potential for those semifinals could be off the charts. And that will resume, the women's tournament will, on Friday, with the semifinals and Saturday, then the Elite Eight games happening on Sunday and Monday. We'll have to save our next topic for after we come back with Mike, because we're having a video issue here, and I don't want to do that without it. But Pro Football Talk, just tweeting this out before we go, as we'll shift gears to the Vikes quick. Per a Vikings representative, the Marcus Davenport contract was signed yesterday. It has been submitted to the league. It should show up on the wire today. The team hopes to have a press conference on Thursday. Why that's important is twofold. A, obviously, to get Davenport signed. B, that meant they had to get under the cap. And if that's the case, then they probably have had to make another move. Whether that means a release of Dalvin Cook, a trade of Dalvin Cook, a trade of Zadarius Smith, a release of Zadarius Smith. So however that works out, that had to come to fruition if they're going to get Davenport signed. Because I don't think any of us were under the impression that the Vikings were done with what they were doing in free agency and maneuvering of the salary cap, but that officially now comes down from Pro Football Talk. So we will wait to see what else the Vikings have in store in terms of other moves between now and the official announcement for when the announcement of Davenport is signed. Also, today, Minnesota State basketball tournament tips off. We had a feature last night on our sports about the DGF boys making it back to state for the first time in 7 years, led by the great Owen Leach, who scored 50 points in the game, as we showed you on Friday night here on Extra in the 8AA championship game when they knocked off Thief River Falls. They play tonight against Plainview, Elgin, Millville. The 4A tournament begins this morning, and that's worth watching for you basketball rubes out there. A, just because the basketball is really good, and B, there are some local prospects that I know the Division I schools in this state are targeting. Specifically, today at noon, Minnetonka plays Eastview. That's Andy Stefanowicz's team. You know Andy's parents well. For you basketball fans out there, his dad, Rob, former Mr. Basketball, Divide County and Bison. His mom is Jody Buck, one of the all-time great women's basketball players. NDSU has offered him. He's a 24 guy, so he's a junior now. Someone to watch. His recruitment is heating up. They play Eastview coming up at noon today. Number 1 seed is Park Center. They tip off against Andover to start the 4A tournament down in Minneapolis. We're due for a break. We come back. Our good friend Mike McFeely will be by. Lots to chat about as portal season is officially underway in men's and women's college basketball. Hot Mike returns after this on WDAY Extra and Inforum.com.
I have seen the future. He was wearing number 5, and I ain't talking about Robbie Grimley, folks.
Took out the muffins, took out the trail mix, took out the cookies. They stole the monster cookies.
You good? Okay.
Is there a reason why I'm out of the shot?
Look at that.
Isn't that great? Old man yells.
Baseball sucks. These kids today.
Right? Welcome, everybody, back here to Hot Mike on this Tuesday morning. WDAY Extra Inforum.com. Back with our good friend and colleague, Mike McFeely, and your drink of choice here on this
Canada
Tuesday
Dry
morning.
ginger ale.
Yeah.
I have a request, though, of your engineers at WDAY or maybe Eric. I was waiting in the green room over here, and fantastic charcuterie tray.
Yes. We do that just for you.
And Amanda, you do a great job. Good job taking care of the guests. I mean, that was really, what a nice young woman. Good job. Studio audience, just
right?
beautiful
right.
outside here. But this was in the green room, just sitting there.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is, but
Look like the bat signal for the old radio days here,
you
right?
need to get one of your engineers to hook this baby up.
I think so.
And every time there's a hot take, have a button, like a little hidden button, like, the president has to, like, eject somebody out of the Oval Office. Have the little button, and then have it go off. Look at this. It'd be fantastic.
Actually, you know what? That is pretty good.
Oh, my God. Hot take.
Yeah.
Be great.
Yep.
Or the other thing is,
right,
you could then take it home at night, and if you're buzzing through the streets of Fargo-Moorhead and you're in a hurry, you plop it in the top of your car, just like Carl Malden and Michael Douglas in the streets of San Francisco back in the 70s. You put it on top of your car and plug it into your cigarette lighter, and you can go buzzing through the streets with immunity because you have a cop signal on top of your car.
There you go.
It's a multiple use light, and I have no idea what it was doing. How can somebody let this thing sit here?
I'm almost positive. I think that went off when the phone rang, like if we're on the air.
Oh,
like the late great Dave Ryan. I think he looked at that when the phone rang. I think that went off.
Well, see when I had a radio show, I never had anybody call.
I know that's not true. I know that's not true.
So I don't know. The 7 listeners I had, none of them wanted to call. And so, but this could be you. Yeah, that'd
be pretty good.
But this is, I mean, engineer guys.
Let's make it happen. Right? And with that said, you got a couple hot takes for us here when your Tuesday appearance?
Well, listening to you guys yesterday in the program, I guess NDSU's going 3-8. Who are they going to beat? Apparently they have no players.
We didn't say
Oh
that.
my God! Oh, the safeties are terrible. The quarterbacks. There's nobody left.
Unproven. There are unproven. Correct.
You guys have totally gone down the rabbit hole of FCS Twitter, which is they have 5 guys transfer, and now FCS Twitter's like,
go down that road.
NDSU is just another program now. They're done.
I never said that.
They're done.
Erroneous.
So what? I mean, 3-8, 4-7,
5-6, maybe. Yeah, scuffle by, maybe.
Okay. I mean, you guys are so negative.
Do you have a position you're going to watch during spring ball? It's spring ball, I know, so it doesn't really get a whole lot of people's attention. I think it should this year with the amount of newness they have on the roster.
Yeah.
Is there one you're intrigued by, interested in?
Middle linebacker. How about that?
That's a good one.
I'm not sure they had a middle linebacker last year
I don't
on a
think so
consistent
either.
basis that could, there's a reason why teams were handing off on 3rd and 15 and getting first downs. And part of it was the defensive line was just injured and young and not quite up to snuff. But part of it, too, had to be that maybe there wasn't anybody that wasn't gap sound, as they say.
In the right spot
at the right spot at the right time.
Yep.
So that's what I'll be watching.
That's a good one.
So, for a 3-8 team, that's maybe not the that's maybe
never said that.
That's maybe not the position you're going to watch. Maybe there's other things to worry about, but I also want to see running back for. We're talking about NDSU, by the way. Everybody knows this. I was assuming they do. I guess. What else would we talk about in this program? That's all we talk about. That's all Fargo Media talks about. That's all we talk about. With Kobe Johnson leaving, who's going to be the second, third, fourth? They don't like to go to one guy.
No.
And I don't know that Tamarick Williams is that guy, that a John Crockett type.
I think he could do 30 carries a game. I don't think so.
You don't want to do that, and I don't know that I don't know if he wants to do that.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see what young guy steps up and becomes the second, third, fourth running back.
We saw a little glimpse of Barika Penu last year that I know Matt Entz is excited about, but he got dinged up as well. He dressed for the Incarnate Word game when Tamarick got hurt, so I'm not sure if he might be the guy. There's a lot of flash there, but hasn't seen a whole lot of the football field yet.
No, but a good offensive line.
They bring almost everybody back there.
Tight end, I'd like to say, I want to see where they advance at tight end. I don't want to knock Joe Stuffle because he was the guy. I mean, he was going to be the guy anyway. We've talked about that last year.
He had a nice year too.
But they, Noah Gindorf was that basically another offensive lineman, right? I mean, that's Tucker Kraft's value to South Dakota State was not only that he could catch passes. That was the flash. But Tucker Kraft was a road grader, and Noah Gindorf was a road grader, and Ben Ellefson was a road grader. I don't know that they have that road grader tight end. They just don't have the big, huge body. So I want to see that position. Right. And we've talked about now for 2 years, receiver.
Yep.
God, you guys, maybe they are going to go 3-8. I was watching yesterday going, God, you guys, now I'm thinking, wait, maybe...
Sound the alarm.
Boston 3-8. Bison 3-8.
But they didn't have. Again, Christian Watson's not ever going to come back through these doors. But a guy to stretch the field, to go long and make a deep pass. Who's going to be that guy? They got two young freshmen they really like, but that
was one of the things that was missing in offense last year. And again, Christian Watson was likely a once in a
generation
lifetime guy for NDSU. You're just not going to find those guys. And if you do find them, the fact that he stuck around here in this era for 5 years is something else, man.
Could write a book on that one.
And so, they just need somebody to teams were just Incarnate Word had 10 guys at the line of scrimmage. South Dakota State, just nobody feared their receivers, especially by the end of the year.
The Bison still were getting massive chunks of yards against 10 guys in the box against Incarnate Word.
Yes.
So.
But they got screwed by the referees.
Yes, of course.
And then it was, the TV guy, got the whole nation.
Got everybody fired up there.
Did he call it a fumble? Yes, they did. Yes, they did call it a fumble.
We teased the show. It's portal season has been open for a week. I think it's now really starting to kick up. I know a story that you were on when we were in Sioux Falls. The freshman of the year in the Summit League, Andrew Rohde from St. Thomas, officially went into the portal yesterday. I think for those that follow Summit League basketball, they're not surprised about that. But this is, I think, And Jay Elson from Midco put up that graphic yesterday.
6 in a row, not immediately,
Yes.
Eventually.
That are all
the
gone.
last 6 fresh. But that's, I saw Zach Dosh, tweeted out yesterday something about a curse. It's not a curse. It's that if a kid comes to the Summit League and has a great year, they're going, well, why am I in the Summit League?
Right.
I can go, now Paul Bruns went to South Dakota, but that was a family. He's
Correct.
from there.
Yep.
But everybody
And his
else,
brother plays there now.
else went on to a, quote unquote, bigger and better situation.
Yep.
Tyree Iheanacho went to James Madison, which is, it's a larger, bigger school in a better situation than UND. Rhodey, the rumor out there is he's going to end up at Wisconsin,
right?
Whether that proves true or not, he's not going to be back in a mid-major. He's going to be
at going to Power 5, right?
Creighton or Power 5 or whatever.
David Jenkins left South Dakota State to go to UNLV.
And he's now he's on his 17th team, and he's 41 years old, and God bless David Jenkins.
Kevin O'Banner left Oral Roberts to go to Texas Tech.
Yeah.
That's the progression of where
we're going. It's just where it's in the modern era. That's just where it is. And do
you think there was anything to this from what you're reporting, about this, that with St. Thomas being ineligible for the tournament, that have anything to do with it or no?
I don't think so.
Okay. So far, it's been all quiet on the Western Front on the Bison side of things. What do you make of that?
On
the men's side of things.
I wouldn't be surprised if there's a guy or two that goes in just because it happens everywhere. But I would be shocked if it was not. I wouldn't be shocked. I would be surprised at this point if it was one of their
key guys.
Their key guys. Now, that being said, we all know Grant Nelson is going to go in the portal. Yes. He is the key guy, the keyest guy. But I'm talking about the young guys, the Damari Wheeler-Thomas,
Lance Waddles, Javis Miller,
those guys. Yeah. Andrew Morgan, those guys. I think from all indications appear to be knock on wood that they're going to stick around.
When we had Dave Richmond on the show last Wednesday, just asking him, how, not scary is the right word, nervous are you? Because last week was spring break. The guys go home, talk to family members, old coaches. That's when people start getting in guys' ears. Hey, are you playing enough?
AAU coaches.
And, and it's what it is. I mean, you can lament it all you want. This is where we're at with specifically college basketball these days. But when the guys get back and then visit with coach, hey, you know what?
Yeah,
I don't know if I'm happy about my role right now.
Why wasn't I starting last year? I think I averaged 23 points a game in AAU ball.
Right.
I only averaged 7 minutes. Why?
I was a stud in high school.
Right,
why am I, the 8th or 9th guy off the bench right now?
But and for as much as we like to pick at Dave for the way he recruits and he has to have a certain type of culture guy, all of that plays into it. That he hopes that if you do your due diligence and you look at the backgrounds and you look at the connections and you say, okay, I'm going to offer this kid, that you've done your due, and you hope the best you can that the guy's going to stick around because you recruited the right kind of guy, right? Some schools are in a position where this kid's still out there.
Yeah,
I'm going to take him because I have no other options, and there's a reason why the kid hasn't signed anywhere. He's still out there.
Yep.
And then he's gone at the first, bat of an eye because he wants to be somewhere else or somewhere, quote unquote, better or whatever.
Email comes in, ask Mike before we go to break. It's been quiet at UND. You surprised with that? I think that we had heard maybe BJ Omot might go in, maybe Trace Eaglestaff.
Well, let's be honest here. When I asked Paul Sather, the UND coach at the Summit League tournament after they lost, a very innocuous question about, do you feel better now headed into next year than where you were a year ago, just because of the young guys that you have that grew? And he broke down and started crying.
Yeah.
And I talked to him afterward, and he's like, these kids should be here. They should be getting better here, not somewhere else. He clearly was worried about kids going in the portal.
Leaving,
and clearly the rumor around the league that I heard was that Omot
was gone.
It was fairly open about, I'm out of here.
Right.
At this point, it looks like they're going to stick around UND because it's been almost, 2 weeks now or a week?
The portal,
a week.
It's been 8 days since it opened. But if you're going to go, you would have probably made up your mind, especially if you were that convinced of it.
Yes.
Right?
And so my guess now, UND had a couple of guys, a couple of bench warmers that went in yesterday. But in terms of BJ Omot, it sure looks like he's going to stick around
That
at
is
this
a
point.
big deal there. He's a good player,
he's a
good young player.
Good young guy.
Yep.
Him and Eagle Staff both. I had questions about Eagle Staff early on last year. I thought, I don't know about this guy. And then late in the year, it's like, oh, okay,
He's all right.
he can fill it. So he's fine.
Let's take a break. We come back. We'll visit with Mike about the Minnesota Gophers hiring of Dawn Plitzowite. What's that mean for the Gopher women's team? We'll discuss that and much more. We wrap up hour one of Hot Mike right after this. Well, I want to plug that alarm in here. We got a tweet for Wolves fans to be excited about from Yahoo Sports saying that potentially it sounds like Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards will be back tomorrow night for the Wolves when they play the Atlanta Hawks at Target Center.
The Wolves can put out another statement saying Karl Anthony Towns continues to exist. He is alive.
Have you
remains part of the team.
Have you sat down and watched any Wolves basketball
I have,
lately?
actually, yes.
I enjoy watching them play. I don't know how those two exist on the floor together, though. That hasn't really worked out.
I've not been a big Cat fan.
Yeah.
I was turned off by him last year, and especially in the playoffs. He just whines too much at the referees. Just play the game.
Yep.
It was just brutal last year against Memphis. It was just nonstop complaining and
nonstop fouling. You got just bad fouls too. But they're having back be certainly helpful there. So there you go, Wolves fans. Okay. Yesterday made the official of the Gophers of hiring Dawn Plitzowite as the new women's basketball coach. I know you had written about when we were down in Sioux Falls
all
about
the Twin
this.
Cities media were all over Aaron Johnston, and I texted my close personal friend Pat Royce and said, Dawn Plitzowite, maybe?
Yeah.
And he didn't respond, but as it turned out, she was hired. And as I wrote down in Sioux Falls, AJ would have been the perfect hire as well.
Yep.
But they were going to hire a female coach.
Right.
And, right, wrong, otherwise, I don't want to, whatever, it doesn't matter.
Nope.
They have their reasons for wanting to do that, and I don't disagree with them mostly. But Dawn Plitzowite is, she got to the Sweet 16 with South Dakota.
Yep.
USD was every bit of SDSU.
I think they actually passed
them there for a couple of years.
Yep.
And so it makes it obvious that she would also be the next hire. She's she's recruited the Twin Cities.
Yep.
She knows the area. She was, you take South Dakota's team last year and put them in Minneapolis, and people are getting on that bandwagon.
Right?
Minneapolis has shown that they will back women's basketball in a big time way.
Yep.
There was nothing more fun than when Lindsay Whalen and Janet McCarville and that crew was going to did they get to the Final Four?
Yeah.
Right? Oh, that was fun. And the whole state was behind them, and that was just fantastic.
That could happen here, especially with the fact that she has 4 homegrown Minnesota players that are all have committed to sticking around.
Which Lindsay Whalen recruited by the way,
them.
because she's Lindsay Whalen and everybody loves her and she's awesome. Maybe wasn't ready to coach.
Yeah.
But Lindsay Whalen is.
She got him there.
Yep.
Yep.
And so now Dawn Plitzowite is going to reap the benefits.
I'm interested to see how this works. The Bison will go to Minnesota next year as part of the payback game with the Gophers coming up here this past November. And we know the level of talent, especially for high school girls basketball right now in the Twin Cities, is pretty good.
So here's the question, and when we've hashed this over, speaking of, there could be a resurgence of Gophers women's basketball. Yep. If the NDSU women not caught South Dakota State, but if they could be competitive with South Dakota State and be a legit second seed. They were the second seed this year, but if you look at the 2nd to the 10th teams in the Summit.
Well, we saw it. The 10th seed beat the second seed.
I don't know if there's a lot of separation there.
Yep.
Is there ever going to be a day when the Shack is filled with 5,000 screaming fans again for a Bison women's basketball game? I don't know, and this is no disrespect to women's basketball. It's no disrespect to Jory Collins, because I don't know if there's ever going to be a day when there's 5,000 people at a men's game.
I was going to. You took the words out of my mouth.
They can't get 18,000 for a football game anymore.
Right. I think they could get to maybe 2,500, I think they could do that
consistently or on a one-time basis.
I think consistently once. If you're telling me
1,500,
the 1,500 to 2,000 range consistently, they can get there if they are proven that we are legit. We are in the mix with South Dakota State. We're fighting them for players. We have beaten them more than once in the last 8 years.
Yep.
Then I think you can stir up some emotion there and get some people back. I think there is but it's been you and Jeff have written about it. It's 20 years.
Those of us
apathy.
Those of us who are around, and this is the hard part. Is I'm trying not to be the old man, even though I'm the old man. Is we remember what it was like, even when they first announced they were going Division I, and they had those couple of years there. They were still getting 5,000 people for the SDSU games for women's basketball at the old BSA. And now you take those years of Carolyn Dehoff and Marn Walseth, and it just
driven it right to the ground.
The fan interest right to the ground. Partially it's that, but the world has changed too, right? In terms of how we consume our sports and whether we show up for games.
You went to the Minnesota game, though, and I know it was Minnesota. But
I did not. I thought
you were at the Gopher game. Well, it was a great crowd that night. I know it was Minnesota, but that can be what the atmosphere is like for routinely, I think, for Bison women's basketball.
If it's against a South Dakota State, a South Dakota,
they're not coming
or
up
a
Kansas
UND,
City,
right?
Yeah, it's not Kansas City or Western Illinois. No,
but I just get the sense, and maybe it's I think the folks in Grand Forks and other places think that there's going to be this resurgence of this Bison-Sioux rivalry, and those days are gone.
No.
And that's part of the bigger picture that I'm getting at is that those days are gone. I just don't know if they're ever going to return, whether it's in football, whether it's in women's basketball, whether it's in men's basketball. I just don't.
You want the rivalry with SDSU. You want to actually have one with them. That's it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's not right now.
I mean, there's a reason why the one game that sells out now at the Dome, sadly,
is the
South Dakota. Now, UND did as well because there's going to be UND fans that fill the seats. But that's the game everybody looks forward to because they don't care about Western Illinois.
No.
But Jory Collins and the program has to get competitive. Not even beat them. Just be competitive and say, going to the fourth quarter, it's a 3-point game, or they could beat them.
It's a toss-up game, right? That hasn't happened in 8 years.
Nope.
8. And probably even longer than that, because that when they got in 15 was almost a fluke, I'd say.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so long ago, people don't even remember it. It happened at Shields Arena, of all places, you know? So be fun to see what happens there. Great stuff as always, man. Thanks for coming in.
You are welcome.
Thanks for the alert here. We're gonna get this working here.
Get it working. Get it working.
Mike McFeely.
Did you ever watch Streets of San Francisco?
I know it. I've seen it. You know what? It used to air on WOR during rain delays when the Mets couldn't play. They had this show on. I'm like, what is this? Yep.
Streets of San Francisco, Barnaby Jones, and Cannon.
Those are the ones.
Quinn Martin Productions. Yeah, look it up. Quinn Martin. A Quinn Martin production.
All right. We'll start hour 2 of Hot Mike on this Tuesday morning. Right after this on WDAY Extra at Inforum.com.
This is Hot Mike. Hot Mike. On the networks of WDAY. Here's Dom Izzo.
He's on the all-tape team day 3 version. Yeah, Bill and I, we were just talking about it. We love this player. Man, this guy makes plays.
Emanuel was in that backfield.
Kick is up and it's blocked. That's a live ball scooped up by North Dakota State. Kyle Emanuel takes it all the way down to the 5-yard line.
I remember I was getting recruited. Coach Bull told me, if you come here, I think you'll win a national championship. He never said anything about 4.
Welcome back, everybody, to Hot Mike here on this Tuesday. Kyle Emanuel joins us in studio. Great to see you, my man. Apparently, football season never ends, and the weather reflects that because it's never going to stop snowing.
Correct. More snow coming tonight. I was just telling McFeely on his way out, I'm just going to leave it in the driveway.
God, I like that idea.
I've given up on shoveling snow. I think I'm the only person who owns a house without a snowblower in Fargo. I get a lot of grief for that, and I think this year has taught me, as last year did too.
Yeah, right.
That time is coming to an end.
I have had the pleasure to meet your mom and dad, and I bring this up only because I don't know if you saw the clip from the NCAA Wrestling Championships.
I did
On Friday.
I did.
We didn't. I wanted to show this yesterday. We ran out of time. So if you didn't see this, Spencer Lee from Iowa was going for a 4th national championship, something you know a little bit about. You won that many. He was wrestling in the semifinals on Friday night. That is the night to get you there, because we're going to talk with Jared Franek about this at 10:35. Let's play the video on this, boys, because this is phenomenal. He ends up. This is an upset because it's the 4th seed. He loses to a guy from Purdue. And ESPN then catches this. This is his mom absolutely losing it. Breaks the glasses? Look at that's amazing to me.
You know,
and then throws them down.
You know, I've never had glasses.
Man.
You obviously do.
Yeah.
So I don't know what.
I'm not doing
is there anything that could drive you to break your glasses? Like, is there anything that you can think of?
Let me say, like Edwin Diaz got hurt last
Edwin
week.
Diaz, did that?
And I was upset, but I was not throwing my glasses. I was not crumpling. Like, would your mom ever have done anything similar to that watching you play?
No, my mom was more. This is what I've heard because I obviously was playing. She would freak out for positive things.
Yeah,
like celebrating.
Yes.
I don't know how she handled disappointment. I think she was more just like, oh, shucks, darn, too bad type of person.
Initially, when I saw it, I thought she was so excited that her son won. I didn't know it till the end. Then when she started crying, I'm like, her son lost.
I will call my mom out one. I think it was in college. Accidentally one time, she threw her hands, drew blood on my dad. With her nail, got a little nick on my dad's cheek.
What play? Do we know?
I have no idea. I'll have to ask and see if she remembers. But
your dad got friendly fire, huh?
He was used to it at that point. But no, she never broke her glasses. So
you love that, but that's crazy. That's super intense.
It's a little crazy, and I don't know a ton about the wrestling world. I wrestled 1 year in 7th grade. What I do know is they're some of the most passionate fans, families, parents that you will ever find. And in the moment when I saw it, it's a little crazy. It's a little out there. It's a little over the top.
Yep.
But I kind of understand. Yeah. I mean, she's so invested. I believe it. She in herself is like a black belt or jujitsu or something. She did something too, and the passion just oozed out of her, and she just didn't know what to do. And her glasses were on her face, and I guess that's what happened.
And then they weren't.
And then they weren't. Man. And then they were gone. She didn't need to see anymore.
Yeah,
that's the joke.
Right?
Yeah,
man, that was something else. We're going to ask Franek about that coming up at 10:35. As I open up my internet browser today, Mel Kiper's thrown another mock draft at me. That's where we're at here. It's March 21st. Anthony Richardson keeps on rising, the Florida QB. I don't know if you've seen any of his tape so far and why that is on the incline. He has not played a ton of college football.
Well, I think he's another one of those guys, kind of like you're Zach Wilson. That's a high risk, high reward type of guy.
Saw that worked out.
I haven't seen, and I'm not comparing him to Zach Wilson, but I just think I think his ceiling is very high. I think his floor could be very low as well. I haven't watched a ton of his tape of him actually playing football, but I know he impressed at the combine. Obviously, I mean his numbers were freakish. But I did see some of his numbers. I think he was at a 59% completion percentage. Had some ups, had some downs in college, as you said. Hasn't played a ton of football. But if you're a team desperate for a quarterback, I can understand a little bit of a reach. And I believe Mel Kiper has 4 quarterbacks in his top 5.
Yeah, he's got Richardson going 5th to the Seahawks here.
And kind of makes sense, right? Because you're in a situation you just signed Geno Smith. You can let him sit for a couple of years behind a veteran who's also on the rise.
Apparently who's been, resurrected his career there in Seattle.
Has he ever? Yeah. So I wouldn't do it personally. If I were a GM, I don't think I would take Anthony Richardson that high. But I understand. I mean, he put up numbers that you'd see from a DB or a wide receiver in terms of his athleticism. If he can develop, I mean, look, Josh Allen was a little bit like that. Not that he put up those numbers, but he was a little bit raw coming out of college. Didn't know what you were going to get. And even in his first year or two, there was some people out there saying, okay, is this a bust? Can this guy actually play?
Still turning the ball over too much. Yep.
He figured it out, and now he is who he is. Yep. So there's always going to be and I almost call it the Patrick Mahomes effect. When the Chiefs drafted Patrick Mahomes, people are kind of like, what? Really? Number 10? You're taking this guy at number 10? It was maybe viewed as a little bit of a risk, and now everyone's trying to emulate that.
Find the next one.
Yeah. And so I think you're seeing teams that are willing to take a little bit more of a risk for that really high reward.
I want to just broach this because last week it hadn't happened yet. So now the Rodgers deal we can at least talk about. that he went on Pat McAfee, said his intention is to play for the Jets. As a current, I'm going to put you on the Jets here. I'm sorry about that. But as for the guys there, how, and some of them, and you saw Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson have been open. Hey, come on, let's make this happen. How odd would that be, knowing this is out there, but nothing has been consummated yet? How would that be to be on the team, either side of this, knowing, okay, he doesn't want to be here in Green Bay, and we really want him in New York? How odd would that be to be on either one of those rosters?
Well, it's strange. I think there's an element of these guys understand the business side of it, and they understand that weird things can happen in the NFL. There's every single year, and it's not going to be this notable, like it's not going to be this high of attention from the media, high-profile thing, but every single year there's going to be guys in your team you don't know if they're coming back. Are they staying? Right. Are they getting traded? Are they getting released? Are they going to, their contract's up? Are they going to extend them? That happens every single year. So guys understand it, and I think you're seeing guys from the Jets just being like, hey, we want to win, and we think that if this guy can help us and he wants to be a part of our team, we want him to be a part of our team. And the Packers guys, I would assume some of them probably, hey, we wanted him back. He was the leader of our team. We enjoyed being around him. Maybe, hopefully they did. We want him back, but we also understand if he doesn't want to be here, we don't want him around either. Yeah. So it's kind of a weird deal, but it's part of the NFL. Yeah. It's just something you deal with. Okay, we got a new teammate today. Oh, that's nothing new.
Happens literally almost every day, right?
Almost every single off day, every Tuesday, I would come to the facility. They were working someone out, because there was an injury or they needed someone new on the practice squad or whatever happened. You always had new guys coming out of the building. It's just not always Aaron Rodgers.
Not as high profile or not as noticeable.
Right.
That's just an odd deal there. Just looking back here with the Kuiper deal, he still has, with the Panthers at the number 1 pick, taking C.J. Stroud at number 1, not Bryce Young. He's got Young 2 to the Texans. And then Indianapolis moving up to take Will Levis, the Kentucky quarterback, number 3. I don't know. I'm interested. Levis I've seen play a little bit. Young seems like the home run to me. I don't care about his size. I think he's going to be dynamite in the NFL.
I think
Stroud's really good though too.
The guy. I think Bryce Young might be the guy, maybe even over C.J. Stroud. You could say we can plug him in and he can play right away.
That's what I thought.
And maybe talking about ceiling, like maybe he's not going to be the superstar. Maybe he is. But he seems like stable. Yes, there's the question about his size, but if that wasn't there, there would be no questions about him based on what you saw from what he did at Alabama. So he seems like a guy you could plug in and play day one. If you need a guy to start day one, you don't want a guy that needs to sit and develop a while. He seems like he could be that guy. Will the size, will he be able to hang in there? I think he will.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing that people aren't talking about enough is the rules in the NFL. Protect you. Now, I know you'll still take a lot of hits.
Yep.
But if you're smart about it, if you can stay in the pocket, if you can have a good offensive line around you, guys can't really do a whole lot to hurt you in the pocket anymore, at least not legally.
Yeah.
And so, is the size going to be an issue? Maybe, but that'll be something we'll have to see and how it plays out.
I do want to ask you one last thing before we'll take a break, and we're going to get into some Bison spring ball topics I want to talk about. The Jalen Carter story that came out last week, that he comes to his pro day, he can't finish drills. He's added 9 pounds, I guess, since the combine. And obviously he was implicated during the combine, during the terrible accident that the 2 people died with drag racing after the national championship. The whole thing, I mean, Todd McShay got killed on this, saying there's some character stuff that came out right after the national championship game. It appears he may have been right on this. This whole story is just, it's not good. It is not good.
And it's not for a guy that was projected to be what?
Number 1. He could have been number 1 in some.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe a top 5
like
number 1 overall
if the Bears had kept their pick, he might have been the guy.
And now, I mean, I'm not going to get into the car crash. I don't know a lot of details about it. Obviously, that's a red flag. That's something they'll have to look into. But just looking at the pro day and think, I mean, your number 1 job, if you're happy with what you did at the combine, if like I did, where you're not going to do a lot at pro day. Like, the only thing you have to do is show up and be in shape and go through drills and be able to get through them and, not mess it up too bad.
Not mess
Just
it
don't
up,
screw it up.
Yeah.
And so it almost seems like to me, and I know this young man's got a lot going on in his life, but the distractions got to him a little bit. It seems like he showed up at his pro day, and I mean, and I know it is tiring. I will say that it is tiring, but when you're in Georgia, you got to assume there's a lot of guys going through pro day. You got a lot of guys that have it.
Right.
So you got a little bit of a break in between. Not like when I was doing it, and Crockett was the only running back, They made me come in and do some.
Yep.
You got a little bit of a break, and he wasn't able. I mean, the videos that I saw just
right.
Didn't
you
look
looked out
good.
of shape.
And so now if you're an NFL team, like I've mentioned before on your show, like you get into the offseason in the NFL, it's all on you.
Yeah.
There's no one knocking on your door making sure you wake up for 6 a.m. lifts. Like it's all on you. If you want to sit on the couch the whole time, you can.
You can do that, right?
That's going to be a question that NFL teams have to ask. Okay, well, we know he's this tremendous talent. There's also a guy like Laramie Tunsil comes to mind.
Yes.
He had the whole video come out of him right before the draft. He drops. Well, he still had a good career, so there's still that.
Yeah, he just
side
signed,
of
I think,
it.
the richest contract for a tackle in NFL history.
Like the second time.
Yeah.
So there's that side of it. Like, okay, maybe he's just young. He's a little immature. Maybe he'll grow into this a little bit. But there's also the other side of him. Maybe he doesn't. And now that's the hard part. That's the hard part about being a GM in the National Football League.
8 Bison, by the way, will be a pro day next Wednesday. We're going to be live up there again, just like we were last year. Noah Gindorf, Nash Jensen, Hunter Lipke, Cody Mauk, Destin Talbert, Michael Tutsi, Spencer Wagey, and Dawson Weber. You and I have talked about this. I'm intrigued what Hunter can do. I know he and Noah both were hoping for a later pro day, so maybe it's just there for I don't know. I don't have any answers on that yet of what they'll be able to do.
I don't either. Like we talked about, you would hope Hunter can do some running things with the shoulder injury, but obviously your shoulder still has to be right for you to be able to move around. I would assume he's not going to do the bench press. But yeah, it's going to be, and it's such a unique thing because this is not like a football game where it's like, okay, if you can go. Like we need you out there. If you're not going to do any more damage, we need you on the field. This is like, you need to impress people, especially a guy that, wasn't able to do anything at the combine.
Right.
So if you're 80%, 75%, like, do you want to really risk it and put out some bad numbers and things like that's another question that him and his agent are going to have to kind of go through and make a decision on.
Let's take a break. We come back. We'll talk about one of Kyle's favorite things, spring ball, as it begins at NDSU on Thursday. We'll do that on the other side of the break. You're watching Hot Mike on WDAY Extra and Inforum.com. Can we just have this outside? Can we just... I know it's not supposed to happen like 4 o'clock, but this is like the ultimate calm before the storm, right? It's just like a kick in the...
Maybe it'll miss us. You never know.
Yeah. 3 to 8 inches. It's just, I thought it was 4 to 7. I don't know. Who knows?
3 to 8.
I'm on board with your policy, though. Because like, I got to get more gas in the snowblower. Like, you know what? Maybe I'll just leave it. Maybe. But that plow come around the corner, I know, is just going to bury me at the end of the driveway.
It's a nice thing about being in a... I think it's because of the cul-de-sac, maybe not, but I usually don't get... I don't get that big hump.
Lucky man.
I get something, but it's not too much. You got a truck, you just drive over it.
Drive over it.
Yeah.
2 words that I know when they come up, you probably get this the little chill up your spine. Spring ball.
Yeah, love it.
Let's just say after your redshirt freshman year, was it then became the grind of like, oh man, we just played 15 football games and now we're going right back to work, it seems like?
Yeah, a little bit. I think after my first spring ball, maybe not my second, but like the coaches understood. Like the guys that had played a ton, it feels like the NDSU season just got done.
Yes.
And here they are already, heading back for spring ball. They did a pretty good job of, lighting the load for some of the guys. So it didn't become too much of a grind. The first one was for sure. I hadn't played yet.
Right.
I redshirted, was trying to earn my spot on the team.
So that was the spring of 2011.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I still remember I had some class conflicts that I didn't understand as a freshman. Like, you shouldn't be scheduling a general class that you have to take. I still remember it because Coulter Boyer got mad at me because he was a senior. And
Is that right?
I had a chemistry class. Okay. He's like, you're really scheduling a chemistry class? And I didn't even have to miss practice, but I was like late. Like once or twice.
So we were late to the starter practice.
Right.
You said? Okay.
And the seniors were not exactly happy about it. Because, in spring ball, you're down a class, right? The new recruiting class hasn't come in yet.
Right.
The seniors,
have left.
So you don't have a ton of guys. Right. Coach Bull still wanted a double rep, meaning we're going 2 fields, offense, defense. And so, if you're lucky, you have 1 sub on a field. So when a freshman comes a little bit late, weren't exactly thrilled with that. But I made sure that didn't happen ever again.
So, and it's so changed now where, as you mentioned, the amount of, I would have to imagine going into April of 2014. How much did you even do that year? Granted, there was a new staff because Chris had taken over and Craig had left. How much had you done that year?
I think I did a decent amount, but again, it wasn't anything crazy. Like you said, I was working with a new coach. Jamar Kane had come in, and I obviously wanted to show him, what I could do, and then I was a guy that they could count on, and Coach Kleiman had kind of challenged me and Mike Hardy that year to be, guys that could stay on the field the whole time. So I think I did a little bit more. I want to say like my junior year actually wasn't a ton. But again, it's that balancing act, right? Because you don't have enough guys, and I think there might have been a couple of years where we couldn't double rep because with injuries and missing a class, we just couldn't do it.
I have picked 3 guys that I'm going to focus on, and I'm curious if you have some other ones. I'm going to start at linebacker, and I've got one guy's Logan Kopp. I think there's a young man who we saw play sparingly in 21 in his true freshman year, played a heck of a lot more last year, had a couple picks. I think he's poised, in my mind, without any inside intel, to be the new middle linebacker. What do you make of that? Is that a spot that he can be to be that guy in 2023?
Well, I think it's definitely possible. Obviously, you got Luke Wirtz and Nick Kubitz that played there last year, and it's funny because I've talked to Grant about, and he's excited. He's like, I got like 7 or 8 guys
all back
that I feel really good about, and now it's just a matter of finding a spot for them. We've seen linebackers move around before, and what's going to be the best position for each one of these guys? Where can they have the most impact? And then where can you also find value from the other guys that are talented on special teams? But Logan Kopp, like you said, there's a number of guys that flashed at times.
He's a smart football player, I think, though, right? I mean, when he started in that game, when Kaiser was out in the Illinois State game, I think it was, he was instinctually, and you know this better than anybody, he's just always in the right spot.
That can make up for a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something it's hard to coach. Grant Olson was like that himself. And
that's why Grant sees a lot of him in Logan, I think.
Exactly. And that's one of the reasons he was such a great player is because Grant could he knew where he needed to be and he got there quickly. And I think you see a little bit of that with Logan Kopp. And I think you saw that with Jackson Henke. I think you see that with a couple of guys that have been coached by Grant.
Running back, McFeely and I were talking about this in the first hour. I'm on Barika Penu, young man from West Fargo, Cheyenne, who got a little bit of reps now with the departures of Kobe Johnson, with Hunter Lipke. I think this guy's got all the tools, Kyle, to be a really, really good running back.
Well, I'm just excited to see him. You know, I feel like we've been talking about him.
Right, a couple years now.
I wasn't in high school coaching when he was playing in high school, so I didn't get to see him play in high school much. But I know the talent is there. I know the coaches are excited about him. Obviously, we in the media have talked about him a ton. Yeah. Now, there's been a lot of good backs in front of him as well, but it seems like you said, now you get to this position in the running back room. You have a couple departures. We know that Tyler Roll likes to roll a lot of guys, and play a lot of guys, keep guys fresh. And running back is also unique in terms of like you can have more than one really good running back, and one might be really good on third down protections. One might be your short yardage guy. What role can Barika Penu come in and fill? And I think there's going to be something out there for him. But I'm just excited to see him get on the field and see what this young man can do.
The reason Iowa State offered him right before signing day, I've had the fortune of watching him play over the last 4 years from high school, from his days at West Fargo Cheyenne. There's skill there. There's a burst that the Bison are going to need, I think, at that spot. Speaking of burst, don't get mad at me. I'm on offense here. I'm at a wide receiver because that's a spot you and I talked about that there wasn't the over-the-top guy. And it's hard to put it on a redshirt freshman, but I'm on Carson Hegerly here. Yeah. Hegerly, I think, was this close to playing last year prior to him breaking his thumb and missing the rest of the season. Young man from West Fargo has all the talent, Kyle. I think this spring is the opportunity to show it.
I agree. And this was a young man that we played against when I was coaching at Shanley. And I saw a couple of highlights of him playing basketball as well. Like he has that it factor, especially athletically. And again, another guy that we've been talking about for a while that I'm excited to see get on the field. And like you mentioned, the receiving core was good last year, was solid, but they definitely missed Christian Watson.
Yes,
right. Obviously,
and you want a guy that's second round pick.
First or second pick in the second round. Like you're gonna miss a guy like that, but just didn't seem like you had. Now Zach Mathis, I thought played phenomenally last year. I thought he was tremendous. But they still didn't necessarily have that guy, the Zach Vra, the Warren Holloway, the Christian Watson, the guy that can get downfield
take
and
the
really
top off, right?
Exactly. Really threaten a defense and force them to not not allow safeties to be creeping up. Obviously, we know NDSU wants to run the ball. When you have a guy that can stretch the field with play action, with different things you can do offensively, that's a big thing, and that's going to be a key factor.
Am I missing a guy? Is there a couple guys you have come to mind that you want to see during spring that have a potential to get on the field in the fall?
Well, I don't know if it's necessarily one guy. I'm looking at the secondary,
Yep.
the safeties.
No doubt.
You have a new coach with Jason Petrino. He's obviously the defensive coordinator. Sounds like he's going to coach safeties.
Yep.
You lost 3 safeties that played a year ago. We all thought Dom Jones was going to be that guy. Now he's gone. Who's going to step up in the secondary? Secondary was very good for a lot of last year.
I thought it was excellent all year, honestly.
We talked a lot about the run game. And
even when Siegel left, they were still good.
So you could also point to corner a little bit, I think, as well.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see the secondary, who's going to step up there. Safety has been a position at NDSU for a long time, going back to before my time. There's always been a stud there.
Really good.
Always been a guy there. They're kind of like the second cap. Sometimes they are that quarterback on the field for the defense. Strong safety and middle linebacker were the 2 key positions when I was playing, and I think it's still that same way. So that's going to be an area that I'm going to be looking for.
I'm looking at your old position as well, at defensive end.
Sure.
There's a spot. Jake Cava's back. The young guy Kelton McCaslin, I think they really like a lot. That is during the spring. Here's a chance to play. They got the transfer in Hunter Zenzen from Iowa State. Those are 2 guys I'm looking at the spring. Say, okay, how well are you gelling here to see can you get on the field and play a lot come the fall?
No, absolutely. And you had Braden Thomas the year before, Spencer Wagey last year.
Dylan Hendricks, I think, took a really nice step through the second half of last year, I thought.
And it's similar to linebacker, and you have a lot of guys that have played.
Yep.
But again, who's going to be that guy that steps up, that becomes the guy that, okay, we have to chip him. We have to slide protections to him. This is a guy we can't single an entire game. Who's going to step up and be that guy? So, I think that's another one. And it's a position where they also roll a lot of guys.
Right.
But I still think you need that one guy that offenses fear. The offensive lines don't want to face every single week. And, that's what this
you got to account for him
for.
on the field.
Exactly.
Like you were. You got to account for him.
Well, I tried.
Yeah, you did. You were all right, man. This was fun talking this again. I know we're in the middle of March and basketball, man, but we're talking football again and excited. And, for the first time, and we were joking about this off air before we go, I mean, you were rolling out either on Dakota Field most of the time, right, outside, or in the Dome occasionally. Now these guys got this brand new indoor facility they're going to be spending.
They don't know how good they have it.
I remember shooting this, I think it was after you had gone, that Climate had to stop practice because it was too foggy out. It was in the early morning and the fog had rolled in. We can't see anything out here.
I still remember this was at spring ball. This was during the season. They had to bring in temporary lights. They had to rent some lights, bring them out on the grass field because we couldn't get in the dome.
Yeah.
And it was later in the year, so it was getting dark quicker, and we couldn't go on the Dakota. I don't remember why.
Yeah.
And brought out temporary lights, and it was like 5 degrees.
We sound like the old guys. Now, back in the day, when you had to practice outside, you know what I mean?
But that's the fun part of playing in college football is because these guys that are playing now in 10 years are going to be probably the same thing about the guys that they don't even understand how good they have. When I was playing, we only got X, Y, and Z, and now they get this. And because the guys did the same thing to me. Like, you don't like AJ Cooper was my position coach. He played at NDSU. He's like, you don't understand. We got one blank gray T-shirt. We got an Ensure bar or whatever. Like, we didn't get anything. Like, you guys have it so good. And now here I am doing the same thing.
Say, now, back in their days when the clock stopped on every first down. Now we got that changed now.
Right.
That's, we got another.
We didn't have NIL when I was playing.
No transfer portal, anything like that. It's great to see you, man. Thanks for coming by.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kyle Emanuel joining us, and he'll be part of our Pro Day coverage next week when we're up live at the indoor practice. Now, I'm not complaining about we're going to be inside for that.
I'm not mad about it.
We're okay about that for next Wednesday for Pro Day up at NDSU. We'll take a break. We come back. You'll meet the newest All-American for the Bison wrestling team. West Fargo's own Jared Franek will join us. We come back on Hot Mic on WDAY Extra at Inforum.com. Welcome back, everybody, on this fast-moving edition of Hot Mic. WDAY Extra, Inforum.com. Reminder, Dick Bramer, voice of the Twins, will make his 2023 debut tomorrow on our show. He actually has a broadcast, I believe, on Thursday. The Twins are on tonight. We'll get you into that and what to watch for we say so long on this Tuesday. We mentioned it yesterday, and we showed it late last week with the NCAA Wrestling Championships going on in Tulsa. The Bison sent 6 wrestlers They come back with 2 All-Americans, Michael Caliendo, redshirt freshman at 165 pounds, and he's going to be dynamite, folks. He's just been phenomenal. And our next guest, who I've had the pleasure of covering since his days at West Fargo, people may forget this. Our next guest was a heck of a football player as well, as we welcome on new NDSU All-American Jared Franek, the pride of West Fargo, joins us. I got to ask, would you give any serious consideration to football after high school, or it was all wrestling?
It was all wrestling for me. I knew that was my best chance of success, and just being the size I was, football probably wasn't in the cards. So it was wrestling.
Every time though, man, you got the ball though, no one could bring you down at like the 3-yard line. You were a touchdown machine.
Yeah, it was fun. I love football, but yeah, wrestling was kind of the destiny.
All right, I got sidetracked here. Give me a great Jay Gibson story. You got one from your playing days?
I guess one of my favorites is when he said, "I did this after my first state title in whatever year it was," and when we were all gathered up for the picture, and he came and launched himself into us. That's one of my favorites. But yeah, that guy was awesome. There's so many stories. Back.
I'll always remember this because I give AP still a hard time about it. Adam Palczewski calling the onside kick to start the second half in the game against Minot. What do you remember about that? About him saying we're going to do this to start the second half?
Yeah, I remember being really excited. I mean, that was a battle. The first half was really close and super gutsy call, but honestly, once we recovered that, it was like the momentum switched, and we were like, we're gonna win this thing, and then we ended up dominating that second half. So.
That was a heck of a Dakota Bowl. I remember that one vividly. Now done with memory lane here. First off, congratulations. Tell me the emotions of Saturday, and even go back to Friday morning, which I know you were obviously disappointed you lost. How did you regroup to get right back onto the mat for Friday night?
Yeah, I mean, that Friday morning match didn't go my way, the quarterfinal match, and yeah, that one was tough. But like you said, I had to be able to regroup and forget about it quickly because, I mean, that next match it'll decide, if you're an All-American or not. So being able to kind of put that one behind me and go back to the hotel, rest up, and reset my mind for focusing on the next 7 minutes.
So for people that don't know, the blood round is what they call Friday night. That determines whether you're going to be an All-American and wrestle on Saturday or if you're done. I had not watched this before. You and I were just visiting about this off air. The emotion, the intensity to that, Jarrett, that is off the charts. And you've been in there and been on the other side. And we were watching the video now of when you knew you were going to be an All-American, and you could actually, I think that was the first time you actually showed some emotion. Describe that when you won what you knew you had done.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I don't show too much emotion out there, but I've been on the other side twice now, and I've been watching as a fan in high school, watching guys and seeing the heartbreak that goes into it when you put everything into it and come up that close. So being on the other side was super, super awesome. It was a big weight off my shoulders, and I'm honestly, the rest of that tournament I was just wrestling freely and excited and trying to climb the podium to get third. So
you go back to the hotel Friday night, what's that emotion like? Just to describe that.
Just kind of a sense of like relief, honestly. Being that night, there's so much emotions, and one of the hardest things for me was sitting at the hotel and that 6 hours in between sessions waiting for that match was tough. But yeah, that night it was kind of a relief, but had to get my weight off and because we got to weigh in that next day. So there wasn't really much time to sit and reflect on it. It was kind of focus up on the next match.
And then Saturday you come back and you're wrestling Peyton Robb from Nebraska, the guy who you lost to start the season. Did it seem like it was fitting, like you were going to see him again sometime down the road?
Yeah, I mean, I knew after that first loss in the year, I was probably going to see him again, and I know him from high school. We've wrestled. We're friends. We've done club practices together. So obviously we were hoping to meet each other in the finals. That would have been a cool story, but we ended up seeing each other in the consolation semis. So it was pretty good to get that one back.
And then it goes to sudden victory. And for non-wrestling fans, Take us through that, where all you need is just a take anything and you win. What is that like, knowing anything that goes either for you or against you and it's over?
Yeah, that 2 minutes of sudden victory is always, I mean, you can't really make a mistake. You got to be, a lot of times, you got to be the first one to go after something gets it. So I just was able to keep my composure, and we got in a few different scrambles, and I ended up coming out on top on the last one. So that was pretty fun.
You know, you and I visited before you left about you wanted to have that introduction on Saturday night and get your All-American trophy. Describe that. What was that like? Did it live up to what you thought it would be?
Yeah, I mean, it was an awesome experience. It was cooler than I even could have expected. Just um, before the finals, you're out in chairs, just kind of chatting with the guys you went to battle with, and then yeah, all 80 of the top college wrestlers in the whole country at any level are up on that stage, and you do like a four-way spin, get to see all the fans cheering you on, and all the cameras flashing, and yeah, it was a pretty cool moment.
I'll tell you this, the neat part about it now is that how ESPN does this is they're able to divvy up each individual mat so you can watch every single one of your matches, whoever else. How much was that helpful for some of your family that couldn't go? They could watch on that's how they could connect to what was going on.
Yeah, it was awesome I mean, my family, fans back home. I know a lot of local North Dakota fans tuned in, and I was the only one from the state representing um, North Dakota at the tournament this year. So it was pretty cool, and I was kind of not putting any pressure on myself, but knowing that like I was representing everyone. So those people being able to kind of tune in and watch and experience those emotions with me was pretty cool.
You know, you've had, I know, a distinct sense of pride about representing the state. Describe that. You've done it from a young age on the big stage as well. To do that now at the NCAA tournament, what that mean to you this weekend?
Yeah, it meant everything. I mean, I felt the past years when I came up short, I was devastated for myself, but just for everyone, like everyone that supported me, and I really wanted to prove that you could reach the highest level. You know, being a hometown kid and staying right close to home, and I had everything I needed to be successful. So that was pretty important to me, and you saw it at the 141-pound champ from Northern Colorado. He's a hometown boy, and he did the same thing representing. And obviously, that was my goal to win a title, staying at home. But I still got one more year to try. So,
well, it's a great segue there, man, because I know some people will say, "Okay, he's a senior to be done." You are gonna come back and do this all over again. Tell me about that decision. When was that made? Was it even made before this season about re-upping and using your extra year of eligibility?
Yeah, kind of throughout the season, I thought about it and kind of had some discussions, and throughout the season as it went on, and I mean, I found I had a pretty good year, was doing well, and I just kind of wanted to not really put any stress on it until after season. But yeah, throughout the year, I realized that I think I would kick myself in the future if I let this last year slip away from me, because I'll never be able to compete like this again at the college level. And I believe I'm still getting better and at the top of my game. So yeah, I'm going to shoot for it for one more year.
I got to ask you about your teammate, Michael Caliendo. He told me he knew he was, when he was coming to NDSU, he'd have a chance to practice every day against you, and that would make him better. Describe what he just did as a redshirt freshman to be All-American.
Yeah, I mean, what he did was show me up. He showed he could get it done the first try. But nah, we were joking about that. But yeah, he's a stud, and to have someone reach that goal with you that you practice with almost every day, it was super cool, and to do it as a redshirt freshman is extremely impressive. So yeah, he's got a super bright future, and I'm excited, really excited for him. But when we talked right after, we said, I mean, we sat by each other watching the finals, and we said next year we want to be back-to-back matches on Saturday night. So anything short of that I think we'd be selling ourselves a little short. So
That'd be something else. All right, I have to ask you this. What was the first indulgence for food? What did you have after, now that you don't have to worry about making weight? What was it? What did you scarf down, or what do you got planned for this week to scarf down that you haven't?
Yeah. I went back to my parents' hotel and had a little bit of pizza, and then we got some ice cream
There you are.
Saturday too. So that was super good. But yeah, I got a few good meals planned. Probably gonna go get some Chinese buffet with some of the coaches. So we've been talking about that for a while, and they've been able to do that throughout the season. I just got to hear about it, so now I'll be able to enjoy it.
I mean, how much does that, honestly, that's just like rub it in your face. Hey, we went out to eat last night. Oh, great. Well, I can't do that. Like, how tough is that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm used to it by now, so at this point, it doesn't really affect me, but yeah, there's definitely moments you get a little bit jealous.
Oh, man. Well, you know what? You've earned it. Go out, eat whatever. Do it for at least a couple weeks, man. You've earned it after a heck of a season. Thanks so much for the time. Congratulations, and we'll talk again soon, all right?
Sounds good. Thank you.
Good to see you, bud. There he goes, Jared Franek, the pride of West Fargo, 4th place All-American at the NCAA Wrestling Championships at 157 pounds, and he's earned some pizza, chicken wings, whatever, ice cream, after making weight for 5 months to go out and do that. That was great stuff. We'll take our final break. We'll come back. We'll get you ready for a busy Sports Tuesday before the storm hits. Hot Mike wraps after this on WDAY Extra at Inforum.com. All right, we've reached the end of the road for today's show. Good stuff today. Our thanks to Jared Franek coming on. That was good stuff. Congratulations to him. Pumped up for our show tomorrow. Justin Guard will join us from KFan down in the Twin Cities. Of course, the voice of the Minnesota Golden Gophers women's basketball team. Give us the download on what people are saying in the Twin Cities about Don Plitzowite's hiring and where the Gophers women go from here. In a super competitive Big Ten, we saw, obviously, Indiana get beat last night, but Iowa's not going anywhere. Ohio State is in the Sweet 16 as well. The top half of the Big Ten is still super, super tough. Nebraska's still alive in the women's NIT, so the challenge is certainly there in front of what Plitzowite has with the Gopher women, and with them on the schedule as well, with the Bison, should be interesting to follow, and to see what Katie Borovich does. She has not made it known yet, one way or the other, if she's going to come back after a couple seasons at Minnesota. Of course, remember, she joined the team early during her senior season at Roseau during the COVID year of 21. So she's actually been down there for 3 seasons already at the U. Missed, of course, that whole season of a year ago with the serious surgery that she had in 21 and 22. So, again, a reminder, we've got the Minnesota Boys State Basketball Tournament is underway. The 4A games are going on right now. Andover and Park Center are playing at Target Center. The 3A tournament also going on at Williams Arena. St. Francis is playing top-seeded Totino Grace. Later today, the 2A tournament will tip off as the DGF Rebels will play at 8 o'clock at Williams Arena against Plainview Elgin Millville. We featured the Rebels last night, making their first trip to the state tournament in 7 years. Highlights of that coming up tonight. Pequot Lakes also plays tonight. They'll take on Albany at 6 o'clock at Williams Arena. So between Target Center and Williams Arena will be the site of the quarterfinal games. A full day of basketball. They're going from 10 o'clock all the way to 8 o'clock with games tonight. So keep an eye on that. Let's get you ready also for what to watch, because there's plenty going on this Tuesday. We mentioned Minnesota Wild back on the ice tonight after their thrilling win on Sunday against the Capitals. Now on the road against the Devils. 6 o'clock tonight on Bally Sports North. New Jersey's having a solid year as well. This will be a tough 2 points for the Wild to get on the road. But right now, they've been able to get points. Doesn't matter where they're playing as they start the night, currently tied with Colorado for second in the Central Division. The Twins are on tonight on Bally Sports North Plus as they'll take on the Tampa Bay Rays as we are in the home stretch. 9 days away from the Twins opener. Doesn't seem right with all the snow on the ground. They'll take on the Rays down in Florida tonight. And it's the finale of the World Baseball Classic, 6 o'clock tonight. Japan and the United States, 6 o'clock on Fox Sports 1. Hank, if we're snowed in apparently tonight, why not watch baseball? Doesn't that make perfect sense of what's going on weather-wise? Thanks to our guests today, to Mike McFeely, Kyle Emanuel, and Jared Franek. If you missed any of our program, you can podcast it later today at Inforum.com. Be safe out there, everybody, especially with the snow coming. And we'll see you back here tomorrow on Hot Mike on WDAY Extra at Inforum.com. Have a great Tuesday, everybody.